The unraveling of the Denver Broncos wasn't supposed to happen this way. After years of rebuilding, recalibrating, and reshaping the roster, this was meant to be the season they turned a corner. But instead, all it took was one misstep, one half of football gone wrong, one broken drive, and the entire foundation cracked. The confidence they'd built up vanished overnight. You could see the confusion in their play, you could feel the hesitation. This wasn't the arc they envisioned, but it's exactly where they've ended up. And it didn't begin with chaos. It started quietly, with a calculated decision. Sean Payton handing over the offensive keys to Bo Nix. It was a gamble, one that prioritized maturity over NFL reps. For a brief moment, it looked inspired. J.K. Dobbins looked sharp out of the backfield. R.J. Harvey showed immediate flashes. Evan Engram added veteran calm. The pieces were moving. But beneath the surface, the seams were already pulling apart. Red zone play calls began to raise eyebrows. The offensive identity, so confidently constructed during training camp, began to blur once the live bullets started flying. The team was functioning, but just barely, and no one seemed to notice. The question is, how did things spiral this fast? How does a team built around structure, veteran leadership, and deliberate planning lose its footing before October? What if this unraveling wasn't sudden, but inevitable? The Broncos didn't just tweak their backfield, they blew it up. The second R.J. Harvey was drafted, the entire tone of the running game shifted. Harvey isn't a development piece, he's an every-down threat, a weapon who amassed 2,995 yards and a 6.5 yards per carry average over his last two college seasons. That kind of production doesn't sit on the bench, and when Denver added him in the second round, despite already signing Dobbins on a short-term, prove-it deal, the message was crystal clear. This job isn't yours by default. That's where the pressure began. Dobbins, a veteran who's endured injuries, surgeries, and trades, isn't washed, but he's not bulletproof either. Payton's bet was simple. Competition brings out the best. But that approach comes with consequences. In a backfield constantly shifting, there's no room for rhythm. Every rep is scrutinized. Every missed cut or blown protection becomes a headline. And when you've got a rookie quarterback under center, that kind of chaos doesn't just affect the run game, it spreads. It disrupts cadence, confuses protections, and derails play calling. A disjointed backfield drains the entire offense slowly and methodically. And yet, the backfield wasn't the only place where Denver took a calculated risk. The Broncos weren't looking for flash at tight end. They needed someone who could thrive in disorder. That's where Evan Engram came in. Once seen as an injury-prone disappointment in New York, Engram found new purpose in Jacksonville. Now in Denver, he isn't here to be the savior, he's here to be the catalyst. Engram's impact goes far beyond the stat sheet. In Jacksonville, even through injuries, he ranked among the league's best tight ends in yards after the catch. It's not just about receptions, it's about what he does once the ball is in his hands. In Payton's system, where space creation and timing are sacred, Engram fits like a scalpel. His ability to pull linebackers off their spots and stretch safeties sideline to sideline doesn't just open up the middle of the field, it buys Bo Nix time. It gives him options. Engram's presence adds layers to the offense that didn't exist a year ago. That's what makes this version of the Broncos so complex. The ingredients are there. The logic behind the moves makes sense, but chemistry isn't math. Talent doesn't guarantee timing. For every advantage they've gained, whether it's Engram's horizontal stretch or Harvey's explosiveness, they've also introduced volatility. And nowhere is that volatility more visible than in the wide receiver room, where previously dormant pieces are starting to flicker to life. But before anyone could capitalize, the system around him began to waver. Which brings us back to Bo Nix, the unexpected focal point of this entire equation. Denver didn't give him a soft landing. They didn't ease him in. From day one, the message was clear. This is your team, and we expect results. Not next year, now. Nix has met that pressure with surprising poise. He's not the flashiest quarterback in his class, and he won't win many combine-style comparisons. But what he brings, stability, decision-making, and ruthless efficiency, is exactly what Payton covets. Denver didn't need another gunslinger. They needed a game manager with teeth, a quarterback who could walk into Sunday chaos and not flinch. That's why Nix won the job, not because he throws the prettiest deep ball, but because he understands timing, because he can change protections, because he plays like someone who's already made mistakes and learned from them. This isn't hype, this is experience. 30-plus starts, 2 college programs, public pressure, private battles. What you're seeing now isn't the product of promise, it's the product of pain. But even as Bo Nix displays the poise and decision-making of a seasoned veteran, that same steadiness has unintended consequences. Because while Nix is settling into his rhythm, the wide receiver room around him isn't standing still. It's evolving. Roles are shifting, hierarchies are crumbling, and at the center of that transformation stands Marvin Mims Jr., a second-year wideout quietly redefining what this Denver offense looks like from the perimeter in. The Broncos didn't reconstruct their receiving core with splashy signings or dramatic trades. They let it grow naturally, from within. And by the end of the 2023 season, Mims wasn't just contributing, he was changing the balance. Over the final 5 games, Mims pulled in 23 receptions for 431 yards and 5 total touchdowns. That's not a footnote, that's a signal. A signal that Courtland Sutton is no longer carrying the burden alone. Defenses now have to account for more width, more speed, and more unpredictability. And in Bo Nix, Mims has found a quarterback who not only trusts him, but finds him in rhythm, in stride, and in stride-breaking moments. But Mims isn't doing it alone. Denver went back to the well last spring and added Troy Franklin, Nix's top target from Oregon. That wasn't a luxury pick, it was a continuation of a relationship. What Franklin brings is more than chemistry, it's instinct. He knows where Nix wants to go before the play even unfolds. That connection, built on live reps and college pressure, gives this offense a shortcut most rookie QBs can only dream of. Add to that Pat Bryant, a rugged rookie who wins with strength at the line and absorbs hits like a tight end, and suddenly the Broncos receiver room looks like a complete toolbox. Franklin stretches the field, Sutton body post defenders, Mims breaks games wide open, Bryant absorbs hits and keeps moving. There isn't a superstar, but there doesn't need to be. Collectively, they're a defensive coordinator's nightmare, 4 different players who win in 4 different ways. And while the offensive story continues to evolve, the backbone of this team hasn't changed. Because for all the innovation on offense, the defense remains the soul of the Denver Broncos. That unit didn't regress, it never left. And in 2024, it might be even nastier. Last season, the Broncos defense ranked 2nd in the NFL in pressure rate, disrupting 40% of all opposing dropbacks. That's a number, yes, but the film tells the real story. This front doesn't wait for 3rd down. It punishes you from the opening snap. It's not about a single star, it's about waves. Zach Allen, DJ Jones, Jonathan Cooper, each one rotates in with aggression. On the edge, Nico Benito explodes off the line with such suddenness that most tackles are beaten before they've even set their feet. This front doesn't just collapse pockets, it turns offensive game plans to ash. But it doesn't stop there. The linebacker core, once considered a vulnerability, has transformed. Josie Jewell may be gone, but in his place arrives Dre Greenlaw, a player who doesn't just make tackles, he ends sequences. Paired with a healthy Alex Singleton, Denver now boasts a second level that smothers checkdowns, muddies throwing lanes, and closes the middle of the field with relentless energy. Behind them, Pat Surtain too, arguably the most refined cover corner in the league. His footwork, discipline, and anticipation make him a one-man shutdown operation, allowing the rest of the secondary to play faster and riskier. All of it ties back to how Denver has chosen to rebuild. Not with noise, not with headlines, but with clarity. George Paton and Sean Payton didn't chase the splash, they let the market unfold, then seized the moments that aligned with their vision. Ingram and Dobbins weren't media darlings, but they were undervalued assets with clear roles. RJ Harvey wasn't the biggest name in the draft, but he fit the system like a glove. And Bo Nix, he wasn't the fan favorite, but he was always their quarterback. Every decision Denver made in the last 18 months was quiet on the surface, but deliberate underneath. Now the question looms, has it all finally come together? Is this the season where discipline meets payoff? Or is it still too fragile? Still one injury, one bad snap, one misread away from crumbling again? Let us know in the comments. Are the Broncos building something real or just dressing up the same old mirage? Because no matter what happens next in Denver, one thing's for sure, this time, it won't happen quietly.